Alright, these are my two Harbor Freight P-51s, my fire and ice, I call them. A couple of videos out there, you might see them labeled as, the flying videos labeled as fire and ice. They're both, for the most part, stock airframes, but they're modified with the motors. I had taken the original brushed motor out that they came with. If you buy a Harbor Freight P-51, if you still find them anywhere, they come with a brushed motor. They're a very older setup equipment, but you can modify them and make them good. So I took out the brushed motor and I put a brushless in-runner motor in there, and I mounted the in-runner to the existing gearbox, so it still has a gearbox. And I think it's like a 5100, no, 5100, I take that back. It's a 4100 kV in-runner motor and a 25 amp ESC. I run a 3-cell LiPo, about a 1350. It's a short pack, you know, probably 3.5 inches or 3 inches long. I can put an 1800 long milliamp hour longer one in there if I want to, but I don't. Currently I'm running a 2.4 gigahertz system. You can leave the original transmitter receiver system in it. It's just fine. For a long time when I flew these, I kept the original 72 megahertz receiver in there and the FM radio that came with the airplane, and it flies just fine with that. I had no range problems, no control problems. It flies just as well that way as it does with my 2.4 gigahertz. The only reason I changed it over was I wanted to run everything off my one radio. I got tired of taking multiple transmitters to the airfield based on the airplane. And also I wanted to get rid of that long snaky antenna that I had taped underneath. That was the only reason I changed it over. Outside of that, stock airframe. I did change the wheels because I fly on a grass field. I need a little bit bigger wheels. This particular blue nose one here, the ice airplane, I fabricated a tail wheel for it. I mean a steerable tail wheel. It already comes with a tail wheel. I bought a steerable tail wheel kit, and all I did was I put the collar on top of the assembly there. You can see that collar, and I bent the shaft over 90 degrees, and I used a clear control rod tube. I sliced it in half, and then I used it to cup over that shaft, and I glued that to the base of the rudder. So as the rudder moves, so does the tail wheel. On my fire airplane, it's the same setup. The only thing different is I did not modify the tail wheel. It has the original tail wheel on it. And I fly these two all the time. These are my best flyers. Of everything I have, these are my best flyers. Granted, it takes longer to learn how to get a handle on these airplanes, but once you do, they fly better than any of my other ones. Okay, the E-Flite Timber. This is probably my first 5-channel airplane because it has the added flap feature with it. So I have all the 4 controls plus the flaps. It also has LED lighting. It's got upper and lower beacons. It has both wing navigation and strobe lights. I had the prop off on this thing because I always keep the prop off when I'm working with it in the house, especially if I'm not doing anything with it and I have no intention of putting a battery in. I might leave the prop on, but anytime I get ready to do anything with it, I pop that prop off. And I have it apart now. I was looking at I had crashed this thing. Not a terribly hard crash, but it did crash, and it went down into the field. And I did crush the nose behind the cowl. I didn't damage this cowl at all. Didn't damage this. But I split some of the foam behind the cowl here, and it twisted the nose a little bit. It separated. The battery tray came out, separated from the airplane. The battery cover separated from the airplane, and I broke the tongue on the cover. But I have this off so I can inspect it every once in a while. Not a problem with that. And I discovered I cracked my spinner probably during that crash. I decided to replace it anyway, so I got a new spinner for it. I also got new gear springs. I always buy them every once in a while because every once, you know, occasionally you'll break the gear springs. These are skis I put on it. They're getting ready to have the skis put on because we're going to have New Year's Day coming up, and I'm going to go to that fly-in. These are modified Dubro skis. I modified them a little bit. I put a little catch stop I glued on here so that I can use my springs to keep the skis in position. But they're going to go on shortly, and I have a couple of videos out there now, maybe one if not two, that show this thing flying with the skis. It also has a this is a plug-and-play version, and my spare one over there is also a plug-and-play version. The reason being, I have a tactic radio. I don't have a Spectrum system, so the AS3X does me no good. I did put an Eagle Tree Guardian in there, so I do have 3D attitude hold function as well as normal stabilization function. And I can turn the entire thing off, unlike the AS3X. I can turn it completely off to just bare sticks. The airplane sent me to the ER, believe it or not. Of all I've been working in the airplanes in the Navy and with the airlines for up to 30 years now, between the two. And I've never so much as cut myself on an airplane. I get this thing here, this E-Flite Timber, and this thing sends me to the ER to have my middle finger stitched back together. What had happened was I had taken this thing out to the airfield to fly it, and when I was doing my testing with the radio, I realized my flight controls, my ailerons, were not responding the way they were supposed to. And I could not fix it out there at the field, so I packaged everything back up, brought it back home, set it right here on the table where it is right now. And I was working on it, trying to figure out what was wrong with my programming and my controls. And apparently I had somehow I managed to dump all the saved programming features for the Timber that I had in the radio. The problem with that is on a tactic radio system, the throttle is reversed. You have to reverse the throttle on the tactic radio system. If you don't, then all the way up will be idled to off, and all the way back will be full power. You have to reverse those. Well, somehow in all the sequence of troubleshooting, you're supposed to turn on the radio first and plug in the battery, unplug the battery, turn off the radio. I did that a number of times trying to troubleshoot that thing. I don't know whether that was the issue or whether it was a reverse throttle issue, but at some point, sitting right here where I am now, I managed to create the scenario where this thing just came full power, came to life at full power and launched itself right off the table at me, just as you see me sitting here. And the propeller caught my middle finger right here, sitting on the same stool I am now. It only stopped because of the front handle grip on the radio. The prop caught that and stopped everything. And I also at the same time probably killed it with the controls somehow or another. But I was able to stop right then and there. But it was blood everywhere, and I ended up having to go to the ER and have them stitch my finger all back together from here on up. Wasn't pretty. So from now on, if I'm even going to put a battery, if I intend to put a battery in the airplane while I am working on it, especially down in the shop, the propeller is coming